Hi, and welcome to another episode of Garmology, a podcast about clothes and stuff. Now, today I'm back on American soil, heading off to Virginia. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jason?
Yeah, I'm Jason Pecarich, the founder of Division Road Inc.
So, just to set the scene, Division Road, what is that?
So we're a heritage menswear retailer. We've always had a luxury approach towards presentation, service, kind of all of our processes, and really matching what we think in terms of presentation and service with the quality of goods that we carry. We've also had kind of a almost design lab mentality about our business, specializing in collaborations. We've been footwear founded, I guess, from the beginning. So that's always been a core to our merchandise mix, working with um, Goodyear welters, stitch down kind of legacy makers, and doing 100% exclusive collaborations in that category. And out of that has funneled a lot of work in apparel over the years, to where I'd say most of our about 40 to 50% of our apparel mix these days are exclusive products to Division Road, and then still 100% of the footwear. So a little bit different bend on a retail organization, with adding kind of a design and lifestyle influence into what we do every day.
Now, we're going to talk more about the business, brands, heritage wear, and so forth in a little bit, but I'm always deeply fascinated by what has brought you to where you are today. As a young Jason cycling around in the neighborhood, what was it that sort of made you take the path and arrive at where you are now?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever knew from an early age I wanted to do what I'm doing now, but clothes, architecture, design always interested me from a pretty young age. I grew up in Washington, D.C., which was obviously very inside the Beltway, economic focused in terms of ambition. So I felt a little bit outside of that box. Just I remember having early inclinations of, if I could just help people find things that they liked, that would be intriguing, and asking my parents if that was a viable career, because that DC was also one of those places where people started asking you what you wanted to be, with requiring serious answers by the time you were like 7 or 8, I guess. And I always had, I kind of got the, I guess, shopping apparel brand bug pretty early on, to where, I think 10 or 11 or 12 years of age, I was definitely like curating my own wardrobe, and very particular about how the garments that I had and how they were even presented in my closet. So um, yeah, I think that was like an early indication that I would be maybe a little bit outside of the box in terms of a career.
So then you went on to fashion school or business school, or
Yeah, I mean, I'm a high school dropout that found himself in university somehow, and about 6 months into a business administration degree, I figured that that's not for me. I was working at kind of this cool streetwear focused store, and one of my coworkers went off to school for a study abroad for fashion design, and something like that didn't even cross my mind up to that point. And I kind of I went and just thought about it, probably momentarily, because I was 18, and that's how major life courses are determined, with very little thought. And put a portfolio together, drew some things. I was always a decent drawer, not illustrative, but could do things technically or duplicate things. So yeah, put a portfolio together and applied to a number of schools in Europe, specifically, and got into design school, and that kind of really set forward my motion into this space. I finished that degree back in the United States. I was in London for a number of years, finished that degree, and then found myself working in both basically apparel manufacturing and doing some interior and architectural design kind of on the side. And this was 2004, 2003, 2004 era. And the housing boom in the United States was going gangbusters. I was in Los Angeles, working for a denim manufacturer that dealt with like premium premium brands of the time, which were mostly women's but some men's, and doing a lot of architecture work. And so I basically just, with a business card and LLC, and again, like, kind of going with my gut, started an architectural design firm in California, um, and did that for a number of years, while I always kept my feet in the pool, I guess, of product design, product development, relationship with that manufacturer, and then some of the designers of the time that were working with that factory, and others. So I always kind of kept my foot in fashion when I was doing architecture, but there's always been this kind of cross pollination between multiple categories of design throughout my life. So yeah.
So that was early 2000s, but then you suddenly went tired of architecture and thought, hey, let's open a shop. Or
Um, yeah, ish. I mean, that business was, I would say, mildly successful. Um, but it was also based off of, a flood of investment in real estate. We dealt with a lot of more second homes, and very site specific properties like hillsides, coastline, on the California coast, from basically like Orange County up to Santa Barbara area, was kind of like our core market, so to speak. And then yeah, like the wheels off of the economic bus, 2007, 2008, started coming off with the housing, uh, I don't know, bust, I guess you could say.
yeah.
And we saw it pretty early on because we were in this kind of, I would call it a middle market for California, where people didn't really, they may not have been investing in something that was absolutely necessary, and we weren't in that market where people just were insensitive to price or economics. So we saw a softening pretty early on in '07. So kind of in conjunction, as that was winding, and slowing pretty drastically. Like, we'd pick up 2 to 3 clients a quarter, and then there were like 3 quarters where we didn't pick up any clients at all, or any projects at all. So it was kind of, the writing was certainly on the wall. And I heard horror stories about the '90s from other architects, and having to go back to school and teach and things like this. And I had no architectural degree. I had a engineer on staff and a drafts person, and that was good enough for California those days, to get plans passed. So basically, kind of just closed down the business pretty quickly. And then I was still involved enough and had enough relationships in apparel specifically to kind of ramp up consulting work, small projects, and basically would take any kind of job in retail branding, did some furniture design stuff. So, I kind of take on almost anything at the time, and some of those jobs were small boutiques with a pretty viable business, and then some were multi international multi-channel retailers of the time. So yeah, I kind of just did that honestly for 7-8 years, and kind of built up my own internal consulting business, um, and still kind of took that take on everything mentality. And at the same time, I was just really working on the business plan for Division Road over those 7-8 years, knowing that at that point I was pretty clear that I didn't want to open or do my own brand or line. I'd seen so many casualties from the people that I worked with, worked for, and then just being in the market and aware for so many years, when I probably had very early long term aspirations of having my own, line, collection, whatever you want to call it, brand.
I
Uh,
think everyone does.
yeah,
That's sort of the dream.
yeah, but there were just so many of these good brands that were just dying with the time. I mean, like, I keep an archive of product over the years, and three quarters of that archive of great stuff are things that don't exist anymore. So I knew that that was kind of like a risky proposition. I also liked and really enjoy, like, on a day to day, the retail business and providing service, and look at that as, not altruistic in any sense, but it's a way for me to be very useful, is to really try to provide the people that we serve now, but just serving people has always kind of given me a boost, I would say. So I come from having experience, and when I was in London, I did a lot of internships, and one of those was for Gucci Group for a number of years, and that was during the Tom Ford era. And there was always like something organizationally in there that things matter, and that things matter, especially when delivered well. And I think that people do have connections to products and sometimes brands, and being on the ground level to try to reinforce that has always been something that's inspired me, not just the product. um, so out of that kind of Division Road, and the many numerations, or numerous formats and models and drafts and redrafts of the business plan, kind of led to uh, me basically trying to get enough capital to do it on my own, because that was one of those things that I felt like was important. I saw, it doesn't happen all the time, but I saw a number of the people that I worked for that would have a couple of partners, or two, and their kind of visions would segment over a period of time. And I didn't want that to happen. So I was kind of just making sure that I was, as building the blocks to success as much as I could, knowing how risky of a proposition it was. And certainly when you consult for others about what they should do with their business, you better not go out on your own and fail abysmally. So I wanted to hedge my bets as much as I could figure to. Um, and probably launched a little bit later than I would have liked to. We launched in 2016, so this is basically our 10th year. Um, but felt like I had all the building blocks in place at that time to kind of do it. So yeah, that's the short form, long form.
At that time, what was your own sort of interest, style, place in the menswear world?
Yeah, I mean, I worked and was always inspired by kind of heritage menswear 1.0, the Tumblr era maybe of menswear. And Japanese selvage denim, self edge, and bringing a lot of that to the U.S. Union made and those kind of retailers and the brands that they were presenting. Collaboration was a huge part of those retailers and brands. J. Crew era. So all of that definitely had a impact on me and kind of like a piece of my heart. And footwear has always been something that intrigued me, and I always felt that, and the things that I was collecting at the time, Trickers, Vibergs, um, Aldens, things like that at that time were never really represented on a retail level to a significant degree. Like you had shoe stores, and then you had, basically retailers that would add some footwear, but it was almost like an accessory, like t-shirts and socks. And knowing what I did about footwear, or a little bit to be dangerous, the sizing, the product information, it's such a deep dive that the shoe store can do well, but it really kind of limits the direction that customers can go within their own wardrobe. Kind of have to go to a different retailer. I think LaFaux was big back in that era, and they were very dress focused. But on the casual side, there was little representation on the shoe store side, and then you had cool retailers of those days that still exist, like Bureau Belfast and others that were doing collaboration product with Trickers and the like. So I think like all of that, just I naturally gravitated to that, but I also was always interested in high quality luxury garments, from my experience in design school and being exposed to those brands and businesses at multiple levels. So I kind of wanted to combine those things, like people that may not want to look like, 2016, it was very much like the kind of lumberjack looking era in heritage menswear. But I
Steam
always,
train operators.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's like a lot of like, which, is cool if you can pull it off, but like, I wanted to present something where, you know, a guy who may not have like some like very well defined, style profile or category could just get nice things, and I think at the same time, in the I guess 2013 to 2014, you kind of saw this real deviation from product quality, where the legacy producers that we all know, were doing something that was just very separate than what most people were getting from major brands. And I think that was really like the beginning of, we call it fast fashion, but these like just like constant turns of product and really proliferation of goods that were all kind of just really um, cheaper, frankly, in terms of quality. So yeah, I think like that conundrum seemed like something that we could solve, and a lot of the presentation and delivering these products because I've been a shopper my entire life, and just from shopping online from early days to still today, I always pay attention to how things are presented on that like last delivery. And then going into shops and having those experiences, I always felt like there was something kind of missing in Heritage most of the time. There were some that knocked it out of the park, and for me, they always stood a cut above. But like, there was nothing less disappointing. Sure there is, but it was quite disappointing to get, a $300 pair of jeans in, a UPS unpadded envelope thrown in the mailbox or something like that. It was just, oh, okay, this is how this is the final experience. So yeah, I always felt like there was a lot that we could focus on as a brand and a company in really hopefully like broadening the exposure of these brands outside of forum threads and these small subsects in the market. I don't know if we've been successful at that, but I think we're definitely regarded as distinct once people start shopping with us.
There do seem to be several categories of online shopping experiences these days. You have those who've gone incredibly large because the big ones seem to have gotten a lot bigger. And then you have the ones that aren't very good. And then you have a sort of mid layer of places that do actually put in the effort to be, I guess, try to emulate the experience of coming into a really nice shop and being taken care of. I mean, one of my bugbears is just how clothes are presented online, and if it's something that several retailers have, how differently they will present it, both good and bad. Just simple things like, have they got the color right?
Yeah,
And living where I live in Norway, where there basically isn't many interesting shops around, I
right.
mean, naturally, I do browse.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it makes it's part of the customer experience, right? When they um, hit a website, whether it's media content, I think that um, yeah, and it's wild to me that in these days where the product that we all seek is not widely available, no matter where you live. There's a host of the product that we carry that you can go to New York and you can't find it. Um, that there's still kind of mediocre photography and kind of poor descriptions and inaccurate specs, and and then it's just like online, and I kind of I don't really think we're recognizing that most people are at least viewing their first experience with like the product is through that media 9 times out of 10 these days, right? Like, so yeah, it's quite intriguing. um what I guess, like, what while we're talking shops online, like what are the shops that kind of inspire you or that you find intriguing?
Well, it was interesting that you mentioned the Bureau in Belfast because that tends to be my go to place. I like Kafka in Aberdeen.
Hmm.
I might order something direct from Monetali in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
Um, Generally, I don't tend to go that much around because I find that if you stick to a few, then you do get a better feel for them.
Yeah, yeah,
Certainly, a better communication with them once they know you.
yeah. I mean, Bureau and Kafka, they've and long term purveyors. Those people they're great people too. Yeah, I mean, and Bureau Belfast was probably like one of my early inspirations. End in its early days was
Yeah,
doing something similar. They definitely transitioned away from that, but
they went large.
um, yeah, most of my international packages came from one of those two retailers. And I think that, they just do a great job, and they're also great at do you know I wouldn't say like staying in their lane, so to speak, but having a very distinct identity and not trying to be everything to everybody, um, and doing what they do and kind of moving the marker, um, you know, accordingly. So that, yeah, those are great ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a sort of reliable shop. You know that if you go there, you get the stuff you like, and if you want something different, maybe go somewhere different.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it was 2016. You decided to open a hipster clothes shop in hipster central Seattle.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
A bit. Yeah. Um, yeah, absolutely. Basically, kind of located there to open Division Road. It was, I mean, I wanted to be around a hotbed of manufacturers and brands that we would work directly with, and the Northwest was definitely one of those. It was kind of Northwest or Northeast, but um, you know, Viberg, Wesco, Whites, they were all geolocated in the Northwest. Much less, we had some makers in Portland, that D in 1920, that we still work a lot with, and Crescent Downworks is in Seattle, Ebbetsfield Flannels we worked with early days. So it was kind of like a hotbed, and I wouldn't say like an untapped market, but we felt like it was a growing market. Good tech infrastructure, always knowing that the online business would be a component and of some significance long term. So yeah, it seemed to check a lot of boxes, and a city that was kind of evolving. So yeah, located in the historic district of Pioneer Square in Seattle. Um, had a great shop down there, which is kind of like a art gallery, underappreciated. So we were definitely a destination shop in Seattle. But yeah, it was a great spot, and yeah, just kind of year after year, just started uh, building it to be a small but mighty team. Um, and yeah, some great work, great times there. I would say one of the things that we found that was interesting is about half of our physical shoppers were from out of town. And part of that was kind of our location, and then part of that was just kind of the marketplace and economics of Seattle, of the time, where you had a lot of people coming in for work or vacation that were you know viewers from abroad, or the few that just kind of happened upon us. And so that kind of always like stuck in our mind about really the heritage kind of quality goods menswear market that we were in, that it's a narrow but broad marketplace. So yeah, evolved that, and then we were planning and towards the precipice of opening a store in New York, targeted for 2020, like early to mid, like right around March or April. And then kind of COVID, and pivoted to, I wouldn't say like our current format, but it was definitely like a big change, moving across the country, and um, flipping the script on the physical model quite a bit, um, which lands us to where we've been for coming up on 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years.
Because what you did then, I'm still trying to sort of get my head around the thinking there because it's such a huge change moving from an established shopping place with a physical location to what appears to be pretty much the middle of nowhere. You're welcome to visit, but I mean, sort of passing trade must be minimal, if
Yeah,
any.
it's yeah, it's completely different. I mean, there's the I guess the short of it when we didn't know a lot, but we knew a couple of things. The New York location was going to probably like we knew that that was probably going to not pencil out before COVID, and we're quite certain that we were going to lose a fair amount of money on a monthly or annual basis to support that location going forward. Our shop location in Seattle was what it clearly became that that neighborhood would not be viable long term, so that we would need to move that physical location in Seattle if we were to stay. And we also knew that from two, well, I guess many features, that online in terms of acquisition would be like the dominant form going forward, and that we felt like that there was no question to that fact for us. And so, in order to grow the e-com business, I guess we'd end up in a warehouse, and that was not very inspiring, to be honest, Nick. I never had the idea of being a retailer and ending up in a warehouse, shooting, writing, releasing, and shipping product as a
Right.
core part of our organization. So yeah, I think that we thought we knew a couple of things, and part of that online acquisition is the goods that we specialize in are rare to begin with, and through the manufacturing supply chain, um, and then current evolutions of the workforce, we felt like they would get more rarer, and that would put a constraint on distribution. And so, if we protect something, we need to protect the e-com business. If we basically do that in a warehouse, I may jump off a bridge. And also, that where we put a store going forward may be quite different in terms of locations than, and this is for us. Like we're not projecting on any other stores or any other brands, but these were the things that we were looking at on the whiteboard at the time. Um, and so, yeah, I think that we didn't really know where the shops or shop or should be. But it was always in my, I don't know, I guess, long-term horizon to have like a headquarters that was, I guess, equally like a lifestyle idea as much as it was like a physical location. Like the Double RL Ranch was always inspiring at a brand level. And so I always kind of thought in the back of my head, like, what if we could have like a location that was like that was visitable, that people could kind of really experience the lifestyle that's being portrayed in, advertising and online and, magazines and stuff like this. So, yeah, I think that was kind of like jumped a couple of steps. And well, that could be a place that we could run an online business. And, you know, that would definitely be a place where we could lean into the kind of physical experiences that we want to provide anyways. Um, in terms of like a shop location, not all your time, but even as a destination shop, about 50% of your time is having resources split from really interested customers to other things. And I found that always difficult to manage, and explaining, like I never want to explain again why something costs what it costs, especially in our market. And we'd always be having those discussions, and they're basically pointless. Like, if you kind of don't understand why this Gitman shirt is $200, or these Vibergs are, $800, and these Trickers are $600, like, you may not get it at any level of discussion. Some may, but very few of those would translate into that. So, what we deal with is niche. And when people come in and are generally interested, like, we want them to have whatever experience they need to have, right? And I think that, I mean, our current location is engineered around that physical experience. And when we have about pretty low volume in terms of physical traffic, but 5 to 7 to 10 appointments a week. We control those so that those resources are dedicated to what amounts to an average of a 2.5 to 3 hour visit in the showroom and shop and fields. And basically, like, if that customer only has one physical touch point with the products that we carry and us, that they're armed with information, and we've built a relationship to where they can, shop with us, and shop with us as if they're in the shop as much as possible, right? And I think that, that and our residency events, which are a big piece of this format here, are really important to how we want to provide goods, and basically connection to the product, and us. And when someone comes here, hopefully they're left with a memory above other things. And I think that kind of, like, non-transactional nature to how we like to serve, whether it be physical or online, is like a real key ingredient to our brand, in terms of, like, being an informational resource, and kind of, we'll transmit whatever we can, and we don't really care if you buy something or not at the end of the day. And that's quite different than how most retailers run their business. Um, but it seemed to have worked for us over the years. Yeah.
You did mention that your location now, which I believe is 45 acres of rolling farmland and lots of nature,
Yeah.
allows you to present the lifestyle you want to present. How would you describe that lifestyle?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a little bit out of Ralph Lauren, the kind of English countryside. I think it's kind of this dichotomy of where we were selling a lot of, like, goods specifically designed for the outdoors or an outdoor lifestyle. And certainly that level of durability, no matter how the product looked, even if it looked like tailoring, or something that was a little bit more refined in the design. But everything that we provide and bring in and collaborate on has to have kind of just like a day-to-day, decade upon decade lifespan to it. That we were kind of exclusively selling those in an urban environment, which is totally, I mean, you can take this stuff and put it wherever you want, but the fact that we're kind of matching the origin story of a lot of these goods in an environment that is, refined. Like, it's not like we're not in, like, a manicured environment. We call our location the Fields. We It's wild, but also kept. And that kind of rewilding, I think, is also something that is intrinsically drawing about some of these products, is people wanting a connection to, you know, the hardiness of some of these products and what they kind of present. So, it kind of the footwear and the denim and the certainly like the flannels, even that lumberjack kind of look, and the goods that we mix with tailoring and refined brogues and oxfords and things like that makes a whole lot of sense. um, I wouldn't say we're like a country gentleman estate, but there's definitely like that aura that exists in this area that makes sense from my, kind of England days of, where these mills and factories are located. Um, so yeah, I think it's an equal presentation. I mean, the other thing is, we have so many, a lot of the content that we're shooting that maybe in the outdoors is, a short walk away on property, and there's numerous of those locations, and that's kind of part of our lifestyle with the fields. Like, we're very involved in the land here and doing what we think is responsible to it. So yeah, it's kind of this combination of, natural fibers and, you know durability and slow fashion and longevity that kind of make a lot of sense where we're at least to us. But yeah, it's I mean, when people come here, like, they get it, but it's very hard to get from the outside. Like,
I
yeah,
think it was kind of a trick question because really it's still 2010 and we're still guys that like good stuff and we just like it. We're not sort of trying to emulate some sort of lifestyle or look a certain way. We just like wearing good clothes.
yeah, yeah,
So trying to put a label on it is just, I mean, yeah, maybe, but
right, yeah,
I do struggle a bit with the idea of heritage wear now because that seems to have taken on so many meanings again. Um, Two very distinct ones, at least. One is heritage wear, as in you're wearing brands that have been around for a long, long time. So there's a heritage in what they're making. And the other seems to be in the look,
hmm,
whereby it can be made anywhere, in any way. But as long as you're sort of looking that way, then you're also heritage wear.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think this is like an evolving issue in our space. Yeah, and I think the terminology that we used to use has just gotten diluted, along with, these other brands and goods that um, use those same terms for something that kind of, as enthusiasts in the space, that we all know is not true. I think that one thing that's really harmful from a consumer perspective is, they get this thing that's Goodyear welted or it's selvage denim, and they can't know the difference between this thing and that thing. And they had the experience with that, and it's probably not great, right? Like, it doesn't last a long time. It kind of, looks beat up sooner than it should. And I mean, we have for years customers are like, yeah, I don't know about like Goodyear welting. Like, I got this pair of whatever brand it is, and I'd step in a puddle and I could feel water in my feet, and it was like, yeah, it's Goodyear welting's like, I always liken it to like wood framed house. It doesn't tell you like that the house is well made. It just tells you like how the house was built, right? Or what the house was built with. And sometimes it takes a lot of like trial error investment and then kind of perseverance to actually find the product that I think meets that old classification of heritage. um, what's also kind of interesting are there are new brands that are doing things the right way, don't have, multi-generation legacy, and how they evolve and scale, um, can change as well. Like some of those stay pretty true to their core manufacturing, factories, methods, materials, and then some of them, as soon as they can, kind of cheapen the product, put it over, do manufacturing overseas, increase their margin, retain price points, or and I think that gap where, has also happened over the last like 10 to 20 years. I mean, I've been looking at this stuff for probably too long, but um, yeah, it's almost like we keep using it, because I don't know if I'm happy to hear a better term to describe, um, the goods that we are. I mean, quality menswear, like that's pretty broad as well. But yeah, I think it has become almost meaningless in a sense unless you're doing the research of those specific products. Yeah, and it is one of those things that I know with the makers that we work with, and I kind of call them makers because most of the brands that we represent are more manufacturers than they are brands. But um, it's a struggle point for them, where there's so many entrants into the marketplace have that spend their money on basically online advertising and mini media to grab that attention economy viewer, and consumer, and have overwhelmed these very small margin, very low volume producers, um, to not becoming irrelevant, but like continuing to push them into a niche. Yeah, it's a growing, constraint, and I think point of frustration for all of us that do know the difference from our experience and exposure, I guess. And also, I just feel bad for all those people that are buying like really cheap stuff that's sold at a moderately high price point, that is completely inferior to other products that exist out there. Yeah.
Mm. I often get into a discussion about if you have two products that are, by all accounts, the same, say a white loop wheel T-shirt,
Yeah.
and one is made by a factory that has been making them for 100 years. The other is made in a low-cost factory that in some faraway place. So it's really the same, but there's a history difference. There's a place of making difference. Does that actually mean anything? And I often feel quite foolish when I'm trying to argue that yes, it does mean something, because, but
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to mean something, right? I think there's just know-how, staying power. While product can look unchanged, you know, there's definitely something that goes into, uh, evolving it slowly but surely over those 100 years, right? I think that, now it doesn't mean that a new a new manufacturer can't adopt some of those things. I mean, there's, some great examples in the marketplace of people that are or brands that are launching and doing amazing product, um I think those rare examples are, relying on those 100-year traditions as well, right? Like, they and trying to respect that in what they do. Um, but yeah, I think that it it definitely has to matter. I think it matters to most once they understand it. I mean, some guys just want a nice loop wheel T-shirt and they don't care, but and that's fine too. Like, That's why there's so many products in the marketplace.
I mean,
But
does it matter that your Goodyear welted shoes are made by Trickers in the old Trickers factory in Northampton and not somewhere else?
I mean, it does to us. I mean,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's a
I mean,
leading question when I ask you, but
no, but well, I mean, and I think that that's like, whether it's someone like yourself, a retailer like us, I think it's important to vet your resources when you're looking at these products, and people that are passionate and really informed. And I think that that's harder to do these days. Is there's so many vlogs and short form videos of what I call talking heads, of people that some have done their research, but it's only been like casual online research that they're transmitting in a 2 to 3 minute clip online or something like that, versus, okay, there's a reason that we, not to say anything bad about it, but there's a reason that we carry Trickers and we don't carry Grenson, that did offshore their manufacturing, and the product definitely was significantly different. Now they brought some of it back, but yeah, I mean, Northampton is an important special place to keep alive, and a tradition, and those family owned manufacturers that are existing there today, are important to keep. These some of the inventors of these processes. Um, and yeah, but and I think that when well, most people that are interested in quality are inspired by by those truths. But I think many that buy a Goodyear welted boot don't know, don't know that those things exist, and um, so yeah, that's the stuff that I think about quite a bit as well. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there is enough to do your research on within this sphere. So I guess if you start out looking at Goodyear welting, and then you're going to follow a certain path through various factories and so forth. And yeah, I was in Northampton last summer going around, and I mean, I was seeing these famous shoe factories all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, you go to those factories, and I mean, almost every worker there, their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents worked in a shoe factory. I mean, it's a bizarre, awesome place. And I don't spend as much time in factories. That I love factories, that I would like to these days, but I'm going to several a year, and the labor force that makes the stuff that I think we appreciate is uh, they are the machine that is absolutely fundamentally important, and they do care about what they do, and I think that um, that kind of ricochets all the way to the consumer, if we're doing things the right way, and kind of um, paying our respects through uh, promotion and acquisition at the end of the day.
Mm. It's a shame so many of them in the Northampton area are not doing very well these days. And I mean, both sales wise and recruitment wise, it's not, the times are not easy at all.
No, I mean, I I kind of think that these goods are transitioning into artisan pretty quickly, and whether it's Northampton or Japan for you know from a fabric and manufacturing standpoint, to the United States, to Western Europe. I mean, there's a real crunch on labor right now, and you have a generation that is transitioning out of the factories, and you don't really have a generation that's replacing them at the same scale. the demand is still high. Um, Fortunately, the quality has not been sacrificed. But that separation of, what guys like you and I have been kind of familiar with for quite a long time in terms of product from the rest of the market in terms of like quality and tradition is becoming a bigger gulf. And I think that, in 5 years' time, like these goods are going to be um, rare, maybe lower volume than they are now. I don't see a lot of the ability for um, these manufacturers to scale. So yeah, there's this real um, delineation that's happening in the market, and one of uh, one of our kind of partner brands, our partners, manufacturing partners, said that to me about like 2 to 3 years ago. He's like, it's going to be artisan, and I was like, is it? And I think he was absolutely right. That getting a pair of these kind of boots and getting these kind of garments, that are made by hand with tradition, with certain types of machinery, from the fabric all the way to cut and sew and finishing. I think that that is going to be, an artisan good in a certain period of time. Yeah.
Mm. With regards to the footwear factories, I think part of the problem there is that they haven't managed to come along with the times. So the working methods and sort of how you treat your employees are still sort of around 100 years ago, which means that you're trying to recruit 20-year-olds into working there and they're just not interested at all.
Mhm.
I did visit one factory, which I thought was incredibly modern and seemed a very attractive workplace. But from what I'm hearing from others, it's arduous, repetitive factory work. And when you can be a YouTube influencer or work in that factory, you're not recruiting the young folks.
Right. Yeah. Well, and part of it's also price. I mean, there's some of these brands that have been on piece pricing for some of these manufacturers have been on piece pricing for years. I think that that's an aged old system. Um, they're, I think that honestly, like it's hard to recruit, even like in the United States, a lot of these factory positions are on par with construction jobs, and construction jobs some of those don't require much training, and they can make, you know, $40 an hour today, basically digging a ditch in, most states. And, how are you going to compete with that where you got to take like 4 or 5 years to get to the point where you're banging out a certain amount of product, like units per day, to make the $40? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And
Mm,
they're like, oh, well, we've got benefits and stuff like that. When you're 20 something years old, you don't care about benefits, you care about paying your rent, like, so I think that
yeah.
um there's a separation there. There's also like a big value gap proposition that exists, as the other stuff is basically retaining or increasing pricing where the quality is going lower. By and large, like a lot of the pricing in these like Western developed nation made goods are pretty static. A pair of selvage denim cost $250 to $300 10 years ago, and it still costs $250 to $300. And that doesn't make any sense looking at the fundamentals of the business.
It doesn't make any sense looking at how other things have gone way up.
Yeah. And I think that
So,
most consumers, like, I mean, there's some brands that, like, with all the ingredients that are in it, like the consumer kind of doesn't believe that it's at that price. Like the customer's like, well, why is it so inexpensive if it's made in Italy and using this material and did it, like something's got to be wrong here, Um, so I think that there's some realignment that's there, and I think there's also an interesting piece of like, we are kind of in an attention economy. You brought up like the social media influencer, like the repetitive work of manufacturing, like, if even as aged adults, adults, quote unquote, um, we're constantly being distracted with an endless sea of stimuli. Then how do you transition into a job that is repetitive and routine, and you're corking this soul, like it's almost like a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that presents a difficulty. We hear from factories like, we'll get six in, and two of them will last past the first week. Like they just they just can't. Their brains aren't wired for
Yeah.
that repetition in the same way. I mean, I think that there's a solve in there and realignments that can exist, but yeah, I don't see that this industry and what you and I are calling heritage can scale any more than it is.
Certainly not unless the jobs become a lot more attractive, and that might mean a shift away from some of the heritage practices, sort of like turning up the light and making it nice and warm, and so people actually enjoy being at work.
Hmm.
Maybe a little less exploitation.
Yeah, and yeah, VOC levels that are maybe a little bit lower too. Yeah.
Mm. I see a little less of the cosplay LARPing heritage these days. I mentioned the steam train
Yeah.
operators. It was really a fixture around 2012, I guess. Was it post overalls who were doing all these stripy? Do you get the impression that has also died down a bit? That it's a bit more blended now?
Yeah, I think refreshingly so. Yeah, the last 2 years too, and I think part of this is interesting generationally, as you kind of have a generation growing up that came from streetwear, quote unquote athleisure world, and they're getting, office jobs, or, in place work environments where they have to dress a certain way and still want to buy, they want to buy nice things. Their budgets may be constrained on number of levels. It's almost like different but similar ingredients that I think inspired, menswear 1.0 out of the great financial crisis. People still want to buy nice things. It may not be from X, Y, or Z brand because they don't offer those things. And they're willing to buy less of things that are of more quality. But then there's also this mixture, um, where I think people are able to define their own personal style with a lot less boundaries. I think, yeah, in our space, you kind of had to dress a certain way, whether it was like a cowboy, or, a railroad worker, or, kind of full streetwear. Like it was very uh, formulated styles, where now people are, wearing sneakers with blazers, and, you know, they're liking things because they're liking things a little bit more and experimenting on their own, which is I think one of the periods we should all savor in terms of style, because it allows, I think, the brands and retailers, and certainly um, end users, to honestly have a little bit more fun with their personal style. And I think that that's, no matter if you're like an aged veteran or collector or like new, like that's part of it, is just, you know, I don't know if I like something until I try it kind of experience. So yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah.
You did mention an important word there, fun, because at times there has been a lack of fun.
Yeah.
Once you start getting the guys in with their rules and their Japanese reference magazines and all this, and telling you how you can and cannot combine and wear and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, it's still, yeah, the rules in fashion have always been um, pretty pretty poor. Uh, I mean, you still get it though. Like I'll scroll on Instagram and it's like so many how tos wearing a certain thing, and it's like just like experiment with how you're going to cuff your own jean. Experiment with the break of your pants. Experiment with like how to roll up the sleeves on your shirt. Like who who are you to tell me how to dress myself? Um, I think again that comes to like reliable resource, and part of that fun is like imitating others that inspire. Oh, I never thought of you know breaking my pants that way, or rolling my pulling the collar out of a shirt over a jacket, and just like fun things that we do that we see others do that maybe that's me, maybe that's not me. I'll give it a try, and I think that yeah, it should be fun. We have in the organization, and then I think in our space, have the we take ourselves a little bit too seriously sometimes. For at the end of the day, what we're just talking about is like boots
Clothes.
and clothing. Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder if some of these guys posting their how tos and stuff make them provocative
Of
to
course.
to get more engagement.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
And people do, of course, well, a certain kind of guy will, of course, be incredibly provoked and get worked up and
Yeah.
create a lot of engagement. So
Well,
I never fall into that trap myself. No, not at all. No.
yeah. I mean, in our space, especially with footwear, forums have always been an ingredient to that, where it's just, way too many yeses and nos about stuff, down to how something fits or a leather. And I understand like why people use those as a resource, but I think I don't read them often, but when I do, it's just like it's really not that serious. Like buy what you like, and other people's commentary about it can go away. So
I have occasionally joked that half of the internet is footwear sizing advice,
it absolutely is. Yeah.
which is why I have never dared buy a pair of Vibergs, because once I start Googling Viberg sizing, I'm left more confused than
Correct.
before I knew nothing at all.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, there's no clarity and confirmation that exists in that sphere at all. No.
So while we think of heritage wear as a very static, heritage-based look, there clearly are fashions in that space as well. In the
Hmm.
same way that vintage fashions exist.
Hmm.
I mean, one year everyone wants polyester tracksuits, the next no one wants them. What are the menswear, heritage wear fashions like these days?
Hmm.
What's coming and what's going?
I mean, I mean, for us, I think there's a real mix between some of the aged makers and reinvestigation, and kind of like Trickers is one of those where it has these pulses where people are intrigued and new to them. And then there's also kind of become I think in the really like the this experimental era that we're in, where you don't have to be like grandpa core, gorp core. Like you can just wear what you like and play around a little bit more. That there's space for um, I think diehard customers to be a little bit more open to, experimenting with tailoring, or, this brand that reads a little bit more formal or refined rather than like pure workwear. Um, so yeah, I think color's another thing that was really non-existent um in our space for a while. Like everything was just drab. And then maybe there'd be like a pop of color, but I think even in, plaids that you're seeing being developed, and knitwear knitwear colors, like there's definitely like more influence than black, grays, browns, and olives, which is pretty cool to see. So yeah, I think menswear is starting to kind of dovetail a little bit more in heritage, and I think that um, like we kind of said, that's really ricocheting in the market when I'm seeing, whether it be collections or even just fabric developments, because we work, fairly closely with mills and sourcing from tanneries. So when we're seeing those things that are developed, a year or 2 years down the road before they have the possibility of actually hitting product, there's definitely more experimentation. I think form and silhouette is one of those things that's great to see, is where, you know, people are going from, the same customer is going to wear like a wide leg trouser one day and something with like a pretty decent taper on it the next day. And that's pretty awesome, I think. To see, and then makers kind of adapting quicker than they normally do to have a broader range of fits and palettes. There's a lot of, I think, experimentation with dyes, undyed yarns, in particular, fiber developments in, and we specialize in all natural materials. Carry very few to zero synthetics as much as we can, and that's really cool to see, mud dyeing and certain pigment dyeing, and then over the last couple of years, a lot of like undyeds in the wools and woolens and cottons, um, coming through, textiles, and manufacturers and brands kind of hitching on to those things, whether it be a sustainability agenda, because dyes can be um, pretty bad, but also, kind of from just a product uniqueness and a palette side as well. So yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, I would say that I'm more, when I go to market or I go to a factory, or when I'm looking at fabrics and leathers, I'm definitely more inspired by the developments that are occurring, um, fiber through garment, than I was 3 to 4 to 6 to 7 years ago.
Hmm. It's interesting how we're both moving towards more natural fibers and natural dyes, but then other parts of the menswear industry are going towards more and more hybrid fiber synthetics. Now there's a whole lot of Asian brands coming up now who are doing really well in the menswear scene, mostly all synthetic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have a pretty firm. I mean, I hate polyester being used as even a lining. That's not my favorite thing. So I think that with like the technical inspired stuff, it's always existed. I think like one of the first conversations that we had was around 10C.
That's right. It was. Yeah.
which is synthetic, but they're trying to recreate. I mean, it's definitely technical wear, but they're trying to recreate kind of a patina and a natural process that happens with canvas and natural cloths, but with waterproofness. Um, so I think like it's kind of the how to on some of those things, but I would agree like there's a lot of this stuff where it's like, well, it's just it's just polyester and kind of like a cool form and really good branding where um it's hitting a mark. And you know most people are living with synthetic fibers on their body, which I think is, I can go into most rooms in most places and it's like there's an overwhelming amount of uh, polyester and man-made fibers in this space. So, like most people don't even like know the difference. Yeah.
There is that. I think for 10C, I mean, clearly there was a purpose behind doing the all nylon. Was it woven nylon?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean it's a nylon poly mix. Yeah.
but that's a brand you've dropped.
Yeah, the founders Alessandro and Paul Harvey basically were bought out. There's a couple of ownership transitions. Brand went in a very different direction. I think uh, way more streetwear as we felt that was kind of becoming a little bit irrelevant. Just even in the broad market, that felt like it was the wrong direction. But it's kind of like one of those things that it's hard when you have a very firm vision on the product and those people not involved anymore for that vision and that product to exist going forward. And I think from seeing a lot of being on the front lines of a lot of brands becoming something different, like I kind of knew what were early warning signs that could be the case. It kind of funny. I think they've kind of pivoted back to the original formula a little bit, but yeah. But we dropped them and treasure the archive pieces that we were able to get in the original era. Yeah.
Because when they started out, they were very much you only needed so many jackets and one liner, and that would be it. And they would continue making these same jackets, which is very sort of fits into the philosophy of less is more, I guess, or buy once and keep for a long time, buy better. Sort of the whole discussion that we're having these days about not buying so much stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but then they sort of pivoted, yes, and now you can buy all sorts of weird stuff, I guess. But I mean, is it possible to make a life in retail if people are buying a lot less?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it goes into the price and artisan um, category. I'm of the view that there's probably somewhere between 95 and 97% of guys that would like this stuff if they knew that it exists, and women too. It doesn't exist in women's wear nearly at the scale that it does in men's.
Very
Uh,
true.
and so I think that there's a lot of opportunity. I still haven't figured out the quotient on how, especially as we've transitioned into an attention economy, like how low margin product gets eyeballs for those 95 to 97% to find this product at the end of it. But I think that, a lot of people, we come across them every day that just don't know that this stuff exists, and once they experience it they're kind of hooked. um so I think so, like, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also the case that once you have experienced it and got hooked, you're not actually buying less. You're still buying tons of stuff, and yeah, you've got 50 pairs of shoes that would all last a lifetime.
There are many of us that are like that. But I mean, like we have a number of customers that basically shop with us twice a year. You know, they get a couple ensembles at the beginning of the season, and that's kind of their shopping. And I think that that's like a little bit more normal than some of us that are on a constant hunt. Um, so I don't know who those guys are, but
No, weirdos.
weirdos. But I think that there are those, and they're, building a wardrobe, rotating a wardrobe a little bit more naturally than I do for sure. Um, and I think that that's always a good sign to see more of those that are kind of, yeah, I don't, and they may not need to know everything about the product, but they know that it's great and they appreciate it just as much, but they do so in a more maybe measured manner.
So that was a sensible version. I mean, you've been in the game now for many, many years. Do you still find yourself seeing things that make your teeth sweat?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Um, Specifically,
Give us a few examples, just so.
and let me clarify, teeth sweat in a good way or a bad way, because I can probably fall
Well,
both ways.
it's kind of in a good way,
Yeah.
but if they're sweating all the time, it could be a bad way.
Yeah. I mean, in on product for sure. Um, Kind of was I was saying earlier, I think the because I always try to keep a view on designer wear, even if I think, for years that by and large it was garbage. But there's definitely a transition happening there that's quite interesting, where you've got Anderson and some others and brands like A Press, kind of filling this luxury designer, but has a heritage sensibility to how things are being made. And then the brands that have tried to retain some of that over the years of, even offshoring most luxury goods to developing or third world nations where there are zero environmental or labor protection policies. So I think that there is a that is definitely inspiring, um, on the product side. And yeah, and I think that the fact that through COVID, even in current crises, which seem to be, we're kind of in the crisis era where these are kind of stacked on top of each other, but that these old makers are still making it happen. I mean, Northampton, like you mentioned, is had some struggling periods, but they're still getting through, and I think that that's great to see. And then other makers that are carrying the same tenants that are a little bit newer, like we work with Free Note Cloth a lot, and they've been able to scale while keeping everything in the United States and not only making the product better. So I think there are like a lot of like bright spots where I can definitely get into the some level of consciousness about, you know, is this stuff going to exist in 10 years? And go down that rabbit hole. But I think that, yes, like we're doing it. And while we're not getting maybe to the 95, 97%, I think we're chipping off a tenth or 2/10 of a percent every year that are getting more exposed to the product that we all love. So yeah, you.
I'm kind of not sure what I asked about now, but
Oh, things that make your teeth sweat.
well, I mean, I will occasionally find things that I think are so nice that I can't stop thinking about them. But I do find it's kind of a little less as time goes by.
Hmm.
After a while, you've kind of seen so much of it so many times. I mean, you'll look to Japan, you'll find so many lovely fabrics. I mean, definitely denim, always Japan. But with everything being really remakes of vintage, there's not that much innovation. So once you've seen, I mean, take these World War II smocks.
Yep.
Everyone's making them at the moment.
Uh-huh.
So once you've got one, you've kind of got one. You might
Yeah.
want another one in another color, maybe a third one in yet another color. But that's sort of jeans, five pocket jeans. I mean, you've got the straight legs, you've got the tapered legs, you've got the neppy fabric. I mean, once you've sort of settled on that, it's hard to find another pair that you might want.
Sure.
And it's kind of, I mean, at some stage you start sort of feeling like you're a bit full.
Yep.
You can't manage the dessert. And that's when it gets trickier.
Do you think like curations, do you find yourself like gravitating to other categories of goods outside of, you know, footwear and apparel? Like, I mean, watches, other like artisan things or
I would love to get more quality tools, say.
Hmm.
Watches is not something I've been interested in. I might have been interested if it hadn't become such a capitalistic collectible. I mean,
Sure.
all the watch bros, it's really all about managing to score the watch and how much it's worth now and how much you
Yep.
can flip it for. And that's it's kind of boring, man.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yep.
But I mean, I do buy and sell a fair amount of clothes because there's always something you want more and something you sort of want less. So
Right.
quality menswear is always very sellable.
Yeah. Tools is interesting. Is there a specific kind of
Ooh.
tool that's like your rabbit
If it
hole?
was something small, Japanese, made of titanium, which I could sort of fiddle with all day. I mean, I love these little Kaweco brass pens.
Ah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
just so cute.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of thing. I
Yeah.
mean, stuff you don't really need because there's always a plastic bic,
Sure.
but nice, well
Yeah.
made, proper stuff. I mean, you're talking heirloom quality
Yeah, yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And tools make a fantastic gift.
They do.
A friend of mine in Connecticut sent me a bunch of craftsman tools 25 years ago now. I
Okay.
think of him every time I use them.
Okay.
And how often does that happen? You give someone something, and every time they touch it, they think of you.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like one of the things that we never wanted to be like a lifestyle store, but that we've been experimenting with, especially, in Virginia, there's a fair amount of, craft artisans. But yeah, like craft arts, utilitarian craft. We're developing furniture from wood that's come off the land, from fallen trees and stuff like that. Because I think there is a point where you do kind of get everything that you need, and you've seen every iteration of an M65 that needs to exist
Oh
in your
God,
like.
so fed up of
Yes,
M65s.
and but that's new to
Someone.
a lot of people, where it's just like, no, this is like the fourth time I've seen this like proliferation of this thing
Uh,
come through the market in way too many ways. But because I do think there is like a natural transition, and I mean, I know for myself, I mean, I've always been a bit particular about the things that I surround myself, but I'll kind of like fall down this rabbit hole and then fall down that rabbit hole, and it's more of like it's a little bit of a broader curation for things that matter to me, than okay, I'm just buying boots, so I think that is a natural evolution, and we're just seeing if seeing what and who and how people gravitate to those other things that are kind of made in the same manner, have that aesthetic, utilitarian, but also kind of craft nature to them. And it's been inspiring internally as as an organization is to be working on those things. Even we've been working on like women's capsule collection things. Like we did a, a number of developments with trickers that we'll build off of, and things like that can kind of also kind of um, inspire and reinvigorate, and then also kind of translate a little bit into what we do as our core business, things that we're paying attention to, uh, and how we portray. So, yeah.
I just remember Japanese gardening tools.
Ah,
Ooh, there's some brands there that are just, oh, even if you don't garden, you might like them.
are you a gardener?
Not really.
Okay.
Just a little bit. I have a little greenhouse and I put some tomatoes out there, but I
Huh.
don't spend my hours pruning my little trees and whatever. But the tools are so nice, so properly made.
It's an opportunity to use them from time to time, right?
Yeah. Now, you did mention the fact that it is a fact that so much of this good stuff is menswear. And
Mm,
women around me keep asking, where can we find this sort of stuff for
mm.
women? Why is it that there isn't more women's wear made along the same lines?
Yeah. I mean, there's two key ingredients, and I worked a lot in women's throughout my career, and I think one ingredient is the market in women's and cycle of trends is so fast, especially these days, whether it be like silhouettes, materials, palette, that the quality, long development from fabric to garment or footwear production process cannot keep up with that. Um, Also, like women's is a little bit more discount prone, like a lot of those premium brands, quote unquote, that are in women's, they're running sometimes 2 to 3 seasonal sales at any given level. The retailers that specialize in those spaces are doing the same, and the margins that you know uh, our makers, and makers like those that we deal with, are just much narrower. They can't support that. I don't. I think the market, like women's in general, is very open. They're seeking more and more year upon year. I think especially as like more information comes out about synthetic fibers, microplastics, PFAS, all of these things that we're basically like poisoning our body and the earth with, that they just had no idea. They're finally looking at labels and like, this was made where, and it's what percentage of synthetic material, and I paid what for it. Okay. Um, so yeah, I think that those are kind of the key resistant forces. I would say the attempts of, especially heritage makers, but whether it be like on the denim side or the footwear side to fill that gap have been pretty poor, honestly. Like there's a real misunderstanding, I think, of how to transition our product into women's wear. Like the qualities need to be different. It needs to drape differently. It needs to be of a different weight. Like if you take a normal Trickers, for example, and this 2.5 pound boot, and put it on a women's last, it's not going to translate. Like, and it, they're far more rotational with their wardrobe. There's just a lot of different qualities. Tailoring's completely different. I mean, men have varied body shapes. Like it's not just women's, but women's bodies are also different. They're, hip to waist ratio is commonly different. Things have to hit at the right spots. And, a lot of the attempts kind of just look like menswear in different sizing. and I think that that's a real poor attempt. I mean, we do collaboration and development as a pretty big ingredient of our product, and try to move that marker as much as possible. And there's really like a a bog in terms of like the development side to getting things to market in the period of time. Now, I'm not saying that it can't exist, but there's like a lot of resistance to it. Um, and I think there's also, from a marketing standpoint, unisex, genderless, a lot of this kind of like, it's kind of for no one. So, or am I a woman buying men's and then just wearing it? So like all the attempts I think have not been successful. Um, so I mean, this is a quote unquote, like, I don't know if it's a problem we're trying to solve, but we're definitely working on the ingredients from portrayal to development, just because we think that there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to offer that market. Because yes, every time a woman comes into our space or our world, that question is asked, like, why doesn't this stuff exist for women's? And, like, a growing percentage of our customer base are women buying menswear as is, or taking it to a tailor, and taking an inch off the sleeves in the body, or recutting a jacket, or, just wearing it as is and it's fit properly. I think a lot of menswear focused retailers also weren't really thinking or didn't have much experience in how to size and provide service for that market when they came. So it was just kind of, and there's a natural, weird thing where you're going to a men's shop to ask if this will work for them and what size they should take. So, like, we do an editorial about every 6 to 9 months called Women in Menswear. Been doing it for a couple of years now, where we're just taking our stuff and trying to we are making it look appropriately feminine, but it's not changing the context of the garment. And I think that portrayal has created space for at least women to say, "Oh, maybe this is a retailer that can serve my needs." Because I think that's the bulk of apparel that is created is in women's wear, and the bulk of apparel that's created is synthetic. So if we put those two key statistics together, like, if are trying to solve that issue, there have to be options in that marketplace, and there really are very, very few and far between, quality, natural material goods that will last, that exist in women's wear.
Mm. Now, I agree with what you said about unisex. I often see brands making a big deal about how they are unisex brands and that it's so fantastic, but it kind of really only works if your men and women are the same body shape,
Right.
which means sort of kind of not too many curves and bumps and bits.
Yeah.
And that does limit your market dramatically. Now, you did mention having things tailored and altered. Is that common? I mean, I'm a short, stocky person, so
Mm.
nothing basically really fits. And my
Right.
nemesis is buttoned cuffs, which are a massive
Yep.
problem.
Yep. I mean, we're big promoters for all of our clients, to have a trusted tailor, and very few things should be expected to fit off the rack exactly how you want them to fit. I think, the death of the tailor and death of the cobbler is a little bit more of a myth than a reality. Like they do still exist in most places where you can find a trusted person to make good alterations of garments. And, if you're buying a $300 shirt or whatever it is, like spending 20 to 30 bucks on, basically the same cost of shipping to have the cuffs adjusted or the length. I'm a short guy, so like a lot of shirts read really long on me. Shirts I like, so I just take them to the tailor and get her to redo the hem or him to redo the hem, take off an inch and a half, like make it short guy length. So, I think that those are, and a lot of it, even that suggestion hasn't occurred to most men. Um, what we find with women that they're more familiar, but they need the allowance that's okay to alter a men's garment, even though that they would alter a women's garment, to get it to fit properly. So I think it's growing, but I think it's more of an educational piece where, this is kind of standard for a lot of body types to, get something taken in. And I don't know, I have like probably 50% of my jackets, not like sports blazers are almost default, but outerwear kind of recut in certain ways. And it doesn't cost much money. It's you know, just kind of customizing it to me.
I find it so incredibly painful unless the result is guaranteed to be exactly like it was made.
Yeah.
So I have so many jackets that I'll just roll the cuff.
Roll the cuff. Oh yeah. And that can be your look too, like it's just roll the cuff. I usually like button and then roll the cuff up about half a length just to take an inch off of it if I don't feel like it needs to go to the tailor. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of impossible to do a neat job of a buttoned cuff.
Mm. It's a little bit difficult, especially if it requires like moving the placket on the cuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell customers, and we do that, find somebody that makes either suits or shirts and go to them,
Right.
because if they know how to make one, they know how to take one apart. Um, and yeah, versus I think a lot of people, especially in the States, will go to a dry cleaner that does alterations. And that's usually a recipe for a hack job for sure.
You
Yeah.
could tell it from 20 paces.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, not great. Um, your own current favorite garments, what would they be? What do you tend to grab in the morning? Maybe roll back 3 months. Winter garments tend to be more
Mm.
interesting than summer.
Yeah. Um, I always get one coat for the season. I've limited myself to one. That doesn't mean that I stay to my limit, but I got this De Balm Facture Redding coat in a ratine cloth from fall winter. That was kind of my big coat for the season. I live in one thing so that I can be rotational at times. Fortella fatigue trousers, I kind of live in those many days out of the week of one fabric or another. Currently, I'm wearing a camouflage version of those. Um, I've been gravitating to a lot of like dress styled brogues and shoes, even in fall, winter, more than boots. I'm just kind of enjoying the play on it being 20 degrees out Fahrenheit, and big coat and dress shoes on a farm, and seeing what they'll take, which is quite a bit, especially when they're made from like Crockett or Trickers or the like. Um, yeah, I've been wearing a lot of. We brought a new brand to us called Taiga Takahashi TT for short. I've been wearing a lot of their stuff and the denim in particular. um, which it's definitely in that A press Visvim early days, but with a completely unique to their own kind of formula. But I would call it like luxury heritage wear, that I've been kind of gravitating to. Um, so yeah, those are my core. I wear a lot of like I love free note cloths, shirting. Um, and I'll usually wear them as like overshirts over like a vest or even a cardigan underneath. So I kind of reverse layers a lot these days. I'll have knitwear under like an overshirt, um, rather than the other way around, over just a shirt. So yeah, those are the things that come top of mind, uh, in terms of what I've been gravitating to through fall. I mean, I'm a sucker for a cardigan. Like I've got more cardigans than any man should. Yeah,
I did actually buy one of the, is it Dayan?
Dian, yeah,
D-
Dian, yeah.
I bought a wool Dayan cardigan this autumn and I love it. That's great.
It's amazing stuff. Yeah, yeah. Still making it off of machines that shouldn't exist. It's so crazy. Like 24 hours, like one of those machines makes basically a basket of material. It's nuts.
So, what does a dedicated menswear retailer wear during the summer? Because that's when I struggle.
Mm. And I think maybe it's because we've moved to where a place where it's summer, like it's hot. It's hot and humid for a solid 2 months, bridging on 3 to 4 some years. And I feel like people are paying more attention to what they're making for some spring summer. Where that was most of our brands, or I think most brands in quality goods, like it was just like their short, small collection, phone it in, get ready for fall winter kind of thing. But like a lot better textiles, linen wool blends. A lot of interesting stuff coming out of Japan with like rayons and whether it be like camp shirts or things like that. Experimentation with just like hardy but lighter weight materials. So yeah, I mean, I'm typically like in a short sleeve shirt. I don't wear shorts. I can't wear shorts. Like I can't do it. Like unless if I'm in like athletic or the event or beach, like that's the only, if I'm playing sport or at the beach is the only time I can wear shorts. But yeah, trousers and then, like a brogue or like something that's a casual derby, with a nice wedge sole to it. That seems to get me by and it's 95 degrees out. Um, but yeah, I think that the even the lighter jackets, outerwear, that have been coming, that can be cooler evening kind of thing. But I think it's a struggle for every guy. Like when we were in Seattle, we'd see some of our best customers come in with like flip flop shorts and like they were going on a boat or something like this, and it was just like I don't know. Like I think we can find something that's still you. But a lot of it was just, you know, some of our makers just weren't and brands weren't making interesting stuff. And I think if you're gonna, dressing for spring summer should feel more fun. Like you're not gonna buy as much, so you might as well buy stuff that's like, that's a pattern or a color or a material that I normally wouldn't gravitate to. Um, and I think the idea that holds a lot up is that like something that's not made super heavy duty isn't the same quality if it's not like 10 pounds, So, especially with like, what, it's the same amount of money, but it's like half the ounces. And it's like, yeah, but it's still amazing. It's still a great hardy fabric. It's just not, made for winter. So yeah,
That's an interesting point because we do tend to be pretty obsessed about the weight, whether
weight.
it's denim or big coats, or there has to be some heft to it. There has to be heavy duty.
Yeah, yeah. But an 11-ounce denim is it's not half the product of a 20-ounce denim. It's just it's a lighter weight fabric. It's the same. It
I
won't
mean,
perform
wh-
differently a little bit, but yeah, sure.
but when we grew up, I mean, denim was a lot lighter than it is now.
It's gotten kind of extreme in some areas. Yeah.
I still find myself sort of thinking, oh, 25-ounce denim. Yeah, I should have a pair of those.
I can't break that stuff in anymore. No.
It's just ridiculous because, I mean, there's no greater utility in it. It's just cardboard.
It's just really heavy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask you is like brands that are inspiring that you may have gravitated to in the last couple of years.
Ooh, that's a nice question. Um, I mean, it's no secret that the last couple of years I have gone pretty heavy on engineered garments, which has been interesting because at the same time, engineered garments has changed a lot
Mhm.
and become less interesting to me.
Hmm.
They have embraced fabrics which I think are pretty poor, a lot of part synthetic fabrics.
Mm.
And now that this season Daiki Suzuki has stepped down as designer, the new designs I think are pretty poor.
Yeah.
So my interest in them has now also turned into an interest in their older gear,
Mm.
which is still tons of it around and you can find it
Yeah.
reasonably priced. Um, that has been kind of my main thing. I have been buying quite a few pairs of Yucatan boots.
Cool. Yeah.
Not the shoes because I find they heel slip a bit on me.
So yeah. So
But
wide last. Yeah.
the boots I love, and I'd love to get a pair of custom made ones so that I can get them just the right one. I have embraced sneakers a little bit more than I have previously.
Yeah.
Haven't really used sneakers since my teenage years, but I came across Flower Mountain
Yep.
and like what they were doing.
Yep.
So I have got a fresh pair of ones in Harris tweed ready to be taken out now. A
Nice.
little bit excited, also wondering whether I should just leave them on the shelf.
Yeah. I've been
But
wearing Flower Mountains. They hold up pretty good too.
I have the first pair I bought. I've been using now for I think 4 years
Yeah.
in all sorts of weather, and I gave them a wash, and they look brand new and still unworn.
Yeah.
Um, I was collecting a lot of old Nigel Caborn. I
Okay.
haven't really found as much of that in recent times. Um, I mean, I do find that my interest does change over time.
Yeah.
And so basically, I mean, I become totally obsessed by something and stock up on that and then
Yeah.
find something else that I'm selling things off. Um, but I do have a free note cloth shirt I bought in Manchester, in fact, at the Auteur store.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about them. I thought they were
Yeah.
Japanese.
Yeah.
Wasn't too disappointed to find they were American. But there you go. Um, I mean, I don't get out and about as much as I'd like to these days. So I don't get to sort of travel around and visit shops,
Yeah.
which I find is really the most sensible way to shop. Sitting online, it's so easy to be seduced by some nice photos and some seductive text. But once you're actually in the shop, you can look at it, feel it, check the seams, try it on. And then when you're stood by the till with your card, and it's like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is such a hard sell.
Yes. Well, and I think like the sense of discovery is more possible, I think, in the physical world. I mean, like we discover stuff online, but it tends to like funnel, right?
There-
Versus like actually finding something. Yeah.
It's also fun when you have actually a true discovery.
Hmm.
Like when I found my first pair of Flower Mountains in England, I hadn't heard of the brand before. I just saw them in the shop and I thought, wow, those are cool.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's you've seen something on Instagram, someone wearing it, something. Oh, you think, oh, better must look into that, and you're really the result of marketing. You're not discovering it yourself.
Right.
So actually finding something new is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The
that is
connection is important. Yeah.
very, very rare now, um, which is also, of course, a factor of being constantly online, but also having had an interest for many, many years. So the Bureau do pretty much every season come up with some new brands that tend to
Yep.
be interesting.
Yep. They do.
So
Yeah.
I have bought into some new brands that I haven't done before. I
Mm.
mean, like this is a warehouse
Okay.
with John Glukov, who was on the podcast 3 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Uh, Samurai. I have
Yeah.
not got any Samurai jeans, but I have another one of these smocks by them, which I really like.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does tend to be, I guess, Japanese stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're doing great stuff. Yeah. I mean the old Nigel Caborn is I mean, and the old, kind of Suzuki engineered garments, like it's that those are cool rabbit holes that I've found myself when I see something transitioning where it's just like, okay, those pieces that I remember, let me see if I can find that I didn't get. Like, let me see if I can find those somewhere.
Still a few around, and they
Yeah,
are very much the sort of 2010 menswear styles. There was just so much good stuff back then,
it was an era for sure.
and
Yeah,
it was just so fresh, and at least it felt fresh
it
because
felt fresh.
a lot of
Yeah,
it was sort of older staples, but given a good injection of enthusiasm, and yeah, it was good times. And also the prices were a lot lower back then.
correct. Yes. Yeah.
Granted, I didn't have money then either, but but that's actually a good final point. I mean, why has everything become so expensive now? Apart from selvage denim, which is still the same.
I mean, I think it's we were in just such a low inflationary period for some period of time, right? And labor's far more expensive. I mean, there's definitely constraints, climate change, um, on natural fiber material where things are getting more expensive and more limited to produce. Like the wool, high quality wool industry is, the prices of wool have been going up for, let's see, what, 6 years now, pretty exponentially, along the lines of precious metals. And the whether it was the mills that were absorbing it for a period of time, then the manufacturers that were absorbing it. I think a lot of like the inflation, especially in our space, is kind of like this old lagged inflation that was existing that is now being forced to being priced in a higher price environment. Um, so I think there's a lot of that, and then we've just seen like brands and manufacturers that were probably producing, I want to say not twice, but close to twice the amount of goods 2 to 3 years ago, especially in the okay, post COVID boom that just can't produce at those levels anymore. So yeah, I think it's a like a combination of things. I mean, I and I think it's like not that inflation is a perception, but when we have the expectation for it, like we see it everywhere, like, whether it's like eggs, houses, like it's like everything's costing more. And I do think that, not that it is just a perception, but we see it a lot more where, there was like a 5% or 10% price increase on something a couple of years ago. We wouldn't have been as maybe like sensitive to it, but now it is pretty
Mm.
much across the board. Um, yeah.
I see one interesting thing that has happened as sort of known traditional brands have moved up price wise is that there are now sort of alternative brands slipping in at an entry level,
Hmm.
making stuff that is very similar,
Yep.
but clearly somewhere far, far away.
Yeah.
And often it's at prices that are so low that you can't understand how it is possible. I
Yeah.
mean, clearly, sort of fast fashion Timu pricing. Uh, some shopkeepers I've talked to say that, I mean, it's a real problem if they stock these brands because that makes the customers question everything else they have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of product that we know we could sell that we don't carry. Like, it just, that's not our particular game. And honestly, like, we kind of have a rule, like, if we don't like it, then we're not gonna present it. um but that's like a hard place when you're leaving big money on the table, where you could have a certain level of business of this product that is inferior, cheaper, is covering that middle market gap, but it's even lower. Yeah, I think the other piece is like, no one's really figured out their pricing model right now. Like major brands in particular, like it's kind of all over the map. And then, tariffs threw a whole, in the US, like a whole like wrench in it, where some are passing along, some are absorbing it. So there's like all these weird levels, where you go to like some of these, like I was on Ralph Lauren site, and their button down shirts for like a polo shirt is not far off of like stuff that's made fundamentally different. Um, but they're clearly like passing along the tariffs. They're seeing this as an opportunity to kind of adjust prices when people are expecting inflation. So yeah, I think, and then you go to another place and it's like, how is this so artificially low? I don't know. Maybe they're mining data too. I mean, there's all sorts of revenue streams these days. Yeah.
Well, that certainly could bring us into some very weird areas.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to admit, Ralph Lauren has never interested me at all, and I've never understood why people are so obsessed with it.
Mm. I mean, it's purely Americana. Like, it's really the outside of Levi's, right? Like, but it's such a brand that, I mean, he's kind of the original American designer. So I think that, that has a definite identity. I mean, the stuff's real popular overseas, UK, but then in particular, like in Japan, it's always been really popular. But yeah, I think it's just it's like the only one we got, like in terms of, Europe's got all these like fashion houses, and in the US it's like, I guess Tom Brown now, but and there's some others, but most designers that are American associate themselves with Europe before they associate themselves with the States. So I think it's part of that. Yeah.
It might just be a personal thing. I was reading an article about his car collection. He has one of the most impressive, valuable car collections in the US, but he has them stored in a massive temperature controlled building in the middle of nowhere, and he'll drop by once a year just to make sure it's still there. It's like, what a waste.
Yep. The amount of good stuff that exists in secured spaces is quite interesting.
Mm. I'm very surprised you haven't commented on the collectible I've got hanging in the background here.
Is that a Belfast?
No,
What is that?
it's Mr. Freedom Mulholland Master, the
Yeah,
first one.
that's beautiful. I mean, that's a
It's
great piece.
it's an astonishing piece. It's got
Yeah,
so many details, and it's just so well made. It's quite incredible. And that's the sort of garments they were making, say
10 years ago.
10,
Yeah,
15 years ago. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that was that peak. There's like peak product on a lot of levels. Yeah,
Because I think at that time, if you could make something better, you made it better. Things made to a quality, not to a price,
right. Oh, for sure. Yeah,
which I
yeah,
guess is basically the sort of stuff we're into
yeah.
much of the
No,
time.
that's that's killer. And is the buckle, is it like solid brass? Is it like,
Solid cast brass.
yeah, it's like 2 pound buckle. That's all.
It's immense.
It has to be melted. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, Jason, shall we call it a day?
Yes, sir, Nick. Yes.
Okay, Jason, thanks a lot. This has been an absolute pleasure. Bye bye for now.
An honor. Thank you so much, Nick.